Hey everyone, welcome back to the Mohr Memories Creative Workshop. It's me, Xavier, and it's great to have you all back, my memory mates. Thanks for joining. I know it's been a while. I'm still in recovery mode from everything that's been going on the past few months, but I'm going to take a stab at putting together the Treasured Memories Simple Page Kit. But kind of reimagining it in a way. Some people might call it a hack, hacking the page and doing something different, but still kind of keeping the basic element of it. I'm just going to call it reimagining in a way. So this simple page kit came out in 2025 last year's Treasured Memories. Was a special page kit, part of one of the launches that had couple of the Treasured Memories albums out and whatnot. And so let's zoom in a little bit here. You can see this simple page kit. If you're not familiar with simple page kits, they are really neat and fun. You get everything you need to make this 2-page layout in the kit. You get this pack of stickers that gives you a lot of options to use on the page, not just what they show you. You get the 2 base pages, and then you get another page with these grid lines that add as either extra embellishment pieces or photo mats. As we can see in the example, we've got some of those being photo mats, and an extra strip at the bottom. There's that gray here, and on the back it gives you those cut lines, so you can use either your paper trimmer, whichever trimmer you have, or you can use scissors. If you don't have a paper trimmer, you can just use those scissors to make those cuts and then adhere them down onto the sheet or onto the base pages. What I'm going to do is still going to do the two page layout. I'm going to use the Our Moments collection. Let me grab that real quick here. So the Our Moments collection came out in 2022. So you can see some of those designs. And I'm using this collection, one, because I've had it in my stash for a while, and moving into working on my 2025 album, I wanted to move away from using the Noteworthy Days and wanted to use a different collection, so I had to go through what I had. And Our Moments was there, and it's been kind of sitting there for a while, so I thought I need to start using this. So that's why I chose the Our Moments. It also is actually the paper collection that this simple page kit is based off of. These prints are either in the tone-on-tone paper pack or as part of the designer paper pack as well, except this newspaper print is a bit different, but otherwise these are relatively the same paper pack. So what we're going to do is we're going to essentially keep the same idea but just a little bit different, enhanced. And I already did the one side as I typically do, and then I'm going to walk us through how to put together the other side. So I'm just going to show you that real quick. I have it on my layout studio, and I'm working on my video layout office space still, so I just have to do a little maneuvering with the camera. But as you can see, here's my current workspace. So that new Creative Memories layout studio is really handy for me. Gives me all of my workspace back. So as you can see, I've got some of the similar elements. I'm going to put this up side by side real quick. So you can see I've got the border around, and I've got the middle section. I'm omitting this piece here. I'm keeping that the white page for now. I might do embellishments. I might do some inking, some stickers. I'm not sure, maybe some journaling. I'm not sure what I want to put in that spot yet, so I'm leaving that white. And as you can see, then the blue part is these two prints. So I just added this kind of background border to that main part. I also made them a little bit larger because the ultimate idea that I'm going to do for this 2-page section is I'm going to put in an 8x8 paper album, the corresponding My Life 8x8 paper album, and I'm actually going to have that, you know, be resting here, and it will flip over, and I'll show you that in a moment. So got my paper album. How am I going to do that? Essentially, I'm going to use an 8x8 peekaboo to kind of get us attached to there, and then for the the inside pages, since this will be on the outside page protector, I'm going to use some of the 8x8 side loading pocket pages. I'm just going to cut that jeeping off in order to use it as basically like a page protector. And this is going to house kind of more of the photos. I have a lot of smaller photos for this year after putting together a different album for someone, and I'm just going to be using those because why reprint them? And so it's gonna kind of be like a highlight reel in a way, to kind of help condense some of the amount of pages that I'm gonna have. But it's also just a neat way to make a more interactive scrapbook. So I'm gonna set this aside because this is gonna come a bit later anyway. So first off, right, I'm using 3 prints or 3 papers in this. Right, I'm using this wood grain pattern, which I repeated for the border. We're gonna make some U cuts in order to kind of conserve paper, but also to be able to reuse some of this instead of having random big chunks of scraps. I'm going to I'm reusing some of it. This camera print, and then of course the square print as well. So I've got those 3 from the collection out here. So I'm going to just kind of keep our simple page off to the side, up on my layout studio, just as a guide, just as that visual reference point. I'll put my stickers to the side. So, what I'm going to be doing, and actually, well, hang on. Kind of need both as my visual right now. So, one side. I'll have that one. Okay. Sorry. Talking to myself a little. All right. So, what I've got here, since I enlarged this middle piece, so on the original, this is an 8 by 8.5 piece. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger and make it an 8.5 by 8.5 because I want a little bit overlap or border around that 8 by 8 paper album. And then the background wood grain print is going to be a 9.25 by 9.25. The border, so the background border of the gray wood grain print is a 1 inch around, and then the inlay is, I believe, a 3/4 inch. I can resize that real quick here. Almost. It's actually a 5/8. So yeah, it's actually around 5/8 all around. So, okay, so it's a little bit different, but it's very reminiscent of the original simple page kit. So we're gonna make all of these elements. Okay. First, do some of the easy cuts. I'm gonna just do my square print, my 8.5 by 8.5. So I had mentioned doing U cuts or U-shaped cuts for this. So I'm gonna turn my trimmer sideways so I can use my measuring, my ruler on the arm here, trimmer arm. I'm gonna get my print. Right. I'm going to line the top part up to where I want 8.5 inches on my arm here. Bring my arm down. I'm going to find my 8.5 mark here, and I'm going to use the little, you can see the little white line on my blade housing to find that 8.5 mark, and then I'm going to just cut all the way up because I'm arranged my paper to the top of the trimmer or to the right side of the trimmer, so that way the measurement arm is at that 0 mark all the way down to 12 inches. If I went at the bottom, it would be off by a few, by probably what, like 1/8 or, well, actually like 1/4 of an inch. So then I'm just going to turn it over just because that's easy peasy. Find that 8.5 mark again. Put, 8.5. Trimmer arm down. This is kind of easier because I've got more of that cut line to help line up my blade housing. And then I will cut up to the right again. And I've got my 8.5 by 8.5. I've also got this scrap piece that I can figure out I might do something different with, but I've saved that. Instead of having 2 different size strips, I can now work with, I might use that as a whole, corner piece of some kind. I don't know. And inlay a different paper. You never know. So we'll put that to the side. The next few cuts we're going to use, I'm going to make my 9.25 by 9.25. So when you're using patterned papers, patterned papers like these might not necessarily matter too much because either way you turn it, it's pretty much the same, almost. But when you've got patterns that run in a certain direction, you want to pay attention to that when you're making your cuts. So with my wood grain, right, I want my wood grain to be going in horizontally on my page. So I have to think about that as I make my cuts. So again, these are 9.5 by 9.5, or 9.25 by 9.25, sorry. So I'm going to bring it to 9.25. Bring my arm down. I'm going to find my 9.25 mark on my trimmer here. And it's the same ideas that we just did with the 8.5 by 8.5. I'm then going to go all the way to the right and cut. turn it over because it's easy. Go to 9.25 there. Come down to my cut mark. Come all the way to the right. I now have my 9.5 by 9.5, or 9.25 by 9.25. I don't know why I keep calling it half. And actually, what I'm going to do is cut another U out of this, because then I will have another piece of spare scrap paper to use otherwise, you know, with either side. So for that, I'm going to go an inch. I'm going to make an inch border. So I got 9.25 and an inch. Would be 8.25. So I'm going to go from my 1 inch mark to 8.25. Now another trick that you could use to help is if you have some of these binder clips that are handy. Right. You can set your binder clip so that the edge is at that 8.25 mark. Actually, no. Sorry, bring it to 8.25. And set your clip right on the track so that when you're cutting, right, or you're ready to cut, you can go right here. And then that 1 inch mark. And set your binder clip there. Making sure I'm at that 1 inch mark here. And then we can just cut. I'm gonna flip over to here. Bring my paper to 1 inch. And cut. And then bring my paper to 1 inch. And cut. Now, for the sides, I should have taken this off. I forgot to do that real quick. But what I can just do is I can just use scissors to make that cut real quick. Not a huge issue there. I'm just gonna get my scissors in here, and I'm just gonna make a cut there. Scissors in here, and make a cut. Oh, a little off. That's okay. So now I have my other U inlay over background. Now I've got this spare piece. I'll put that to the side with the rest of my papers. And then finally, I'm going to take my camera print. I'm actually going to trim off a 1/4 inch first from each side. So that way it will inlay correctly when I do that U. Just making my, double checking myself. I need maybe about 1/8 off, a little bit more. Okay, yeah. So from around 1/4 to 3/8, you might need to trim off. That's okay. And so then again with the direction, directional. I'm gonna go this way. And so I said about 5/8 inch. So I'm going to bring that to my 5/8 mark here. Bring that down. I'm going to then on my tool, my ruler here, I'm going to mark that 5/8. And 5/8 is the first big mark after 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to use a pencil to kind of make this a little bit darker real quick so that I can easily find that 1/8 mark, or 5/8 mark from the top down here, as well as here. So this is coming to 5/8 here. I think I need to make that mark at stop at 11. So I'm going to bring my blade housing to my 11, line up my line with the 11-inch mark, and then I'm going to cut up to the 5/8 mark. And then again, I'm going to line the bottom part up to 5/8. And then this one's going to be easy because now I've got that first cut line. I can just line up with the cut line, and I'm going to cut right through because I'm making this U cut. And then again on the bottom sheet, so I'm just going to turn it over, line up to 5/8 again. Same idea, line up at the cut line that's already there and cut all the way down, or all the way to the left. Now I've got this section, this whole piece to use elsewhere, and I've got my other border. The last border that we need to make now is for out of the wood grain. So again, this is where we want to pay attention to directional pieces. Right? So what I'm going to need to do is first off, right, I'm going to make an L cut. So I'm going to bring this to the 1-inch mark. And then on the left side, I'm going to come to 11 inches because this is a full 12 by 12. So I want a 1-inch border. So I'm going to come to my 11 mark and cut all the way to the right. I'm going to turn and do the same thing. Line up at 1 inch. Come down to, make sure I am on my 1-inch mark. Yep. Okay. Come down to 11. Or all the way, actually all the way to the, because it's a 12 piece and I want the L, so yeah, I don't. So yeah, so on this side, go all the way to the left and cut up to the 1-inch, or go to your 1-inch where you already have a cut line and go all the way to the left. So now I've got the L part, I just have to do the top. So with the top, right, again, directionally, I'm going to need to use this portion of the paper. Right? So, and it's already going to be a little bit shorter because I've cut off 1 inch here. So, but that's okay because that 1 inch is going to make up in that L. I'm going to cut my strip to have this part be the longer part because this is the print that I need as part of the wood grain. I need the horizontal part. So I'm just going to line that up in the trimmer here, cut, and then I'm going to cut myself a, that sounded bad, right? Cut myself, don't cut yourself, folks. I'm going to then cut a 1 inch strip off of this. Get that lined up better, shifted. I'm gonna put the arm down. It's shifting a little on me. It's okay. I'm just gonna get that. There we go. That's with that. So we've got all of our pieces cut. One little extra that I added to this particular page is inking the sides, the edges of all the pieces. So I'm going to do that real quick and give a quick ink. You don't have to do this step if you don't like inking, or you're not sure, you haven't come into that world yet. That's okay. You don't have to. You can skip this part. But I'm just going to edge all of my pieces with, I'm going to use the gray flannel Memento ink. And since I have to think about the pattern a little bit, I have to see which edge is going to be which here. Okay, so this is going to be the edge that goes towards the staple side. And I'm just gliding that ink pad right along the edge, getting, a little bit of a definition line. You can go as dark as you would like. On the inside. I'm not doing this edge because it's going to come, it's going to be hitting the end of the page there, so I don't want to have that. I want it to flow into the left side, so as if they're connected. So I'm not going to do that edge. Corners can be a little bit tricky. I just try to take my time a little and just get the tip of the ink pad in there best I can. Like that. Okay. Got that done. Let's do the photos or the camera print next. And this is just a simple way to just add a little extra to the edges. to either what we're doing here, right, the papers themselves to help them pop a little. You could edge the photo itself, and the photo kind of gives its own illusion of a little edged mat in a way, and all it is just ink. And these are photo safe inks, archival quality. You'll be fine using them on the photos. They're acid free. They're water-based inks. And for those that don't want to do these U-cuts, you know, especially for the middle parts, you can just cut, you know, the 8.5 by 8.5, and then the 9.25 by 9.25. But if you're looking to try to save some of the paper, this is a great way to do that by, you know, cutting out sort of those middle parts that you don't necessarily need, and that you can use in other spots. Because sometimes some of the papers that we get from Creative Memories are just really, really nice prints, and I know I've struggled at times to be like, should I use it? Should I save it? And I've recently gotten to that point of just being like, I can't save all the paper in the world, and I got it to use it, so I need to use it. Oops, I'm not too worried about that little smudge. It's okay. But as I was saying, you know, I got these to use them. I need to just use them. That's the whole point. So I've just been taking the plunge sometimes and digging into what I've been stashing and just need to use it. Such as this particular collection, right? Our Moments. I've had it for a while. Partly because I got it earlier on when I started back into scrapping. And at that time, I was just approaching pages and albums in a different way. And so some of the prints, you know, I really liked and, you know, wanted as backgrounds. And so that's why I have a bit of it. But I've since, you know, learned some new things, tried some new things, and kind of developed a different way of approaching pages since before when I got started again. And that's okay, that can happen. Alright, last one here to ink. Oops, paper's slipping a little. So like I said, you don't have to do the inking if you don't want to, or you don't have the inks, if you're not sure about it yet. That's fine, you can skip this part. Okay, so we got all of our pieces. Let's get them onto our base page. So part of the style that I've worked on recently, actually, and I really like, is I typically use standard pages for my albums. And I now work towards integrating the white base page, or whatever color base page I'm working with, into the layout itself, so that I have kind of that open space and I can either journal right on the page, or it just is part of the layout. versus covering the whole page with another piece of paper, what many people will call wallpapering, right? So this would just literally be adhering this page down onto this, which is fine. People do that. I've done it. I just veer away from it a bit now, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm gonna get my adhesives. You might want to use repo or repositionable adhesive. That's up to you. I'm just going to use regular adhesive, and I'm just going to start now getting my border on. Oops. I'm going to bring it all the way to the edge of the jeeping here. Top piece. So if you're not a fan of this kind of style of kind of, you know, piecing it together, I mean, you could use another print, you know, if you have the extra sheet, you could use another sheet of this to make this whole U cut. I don't necessarily mind doing this, so I just go ahead and do it. It's just another way of conserving some more of the paper, because for this, I'm going to be using Our Moments. I fit 3 years into one album, so I'll be using Our Moments for my this next album, which will be 2025, 2026, and 2027. So I'm a little bit more conscientious around. I forgot to get this side inked. I'm a little bit more conscientious around, you know, how to use the paper a little bit more smartly. No, I don't want to say smartly, but how to conserve it a little bit more and make it go a little bit further is all. I forgot to do this side too. That's all right. Get that in real quick. Almost. Just need it to be a little bit. Okay. It's a little uneven there. All right. This is where repo tape can come in handy. Helps to reposition a little bit easier. But if you're using regular tape, going slow will work just as fine. Don't have to worry about that. Okay. Next would be our inlay. So you can certainly, you know, if you're using a cutting mat, you know, use your measurements. I tend to kind of just get my other page here to do my lineup of everything. But pause on that, because here's my 8x8 peekaboo pocket. And so I need to first, if you're going to do this part, you know, I'll show that to you, if, you know, so you can always kind of skip through this if you need to watch the rest of putting this together. But because I'm going to be doing that peekaboo pocket insert, right? Here's where I need to I'm gonna take a moment, pause, and kind of see where is this gonna lay. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my 8x8 peekaboo pocket and I'm going to adhere it right down to my standard page first. I'm gonna bring it to the edge of the jeeping. And I'm going to adhere it down because then it's going to hold at least the first page, right, of that 8x8 album. So just making sure this is going to work. Yep. Right. And so now we'll be in the middle and flip through. So I'm going to take this out so we can finish our page. Now I'm going to do my U. And I'm putting it this way instead of on the page protector itself, just because I want it to have a little bit more hold in there, you know, on the page, so it's not like flopping or pulling the page protector. So okay, and then here your 8.5 by 8.5 piece. There we go. So reimagined the timeless, what is this one called? Oh, sorry, Treasured Memories, simple page kit, reimagined here with an 8.5, or sorry, an 8x8 inlay, which I'm using the corresponding My Life paper album. And so like I had mentioned, now this will be in. So what I can either do, however I decide to do this, right? I might adhere this last page down to give it extra stability on the page. If I do that though, I'm going to need to, you know, make cuts on my page protector so that these pages can come out. I might use it for a photo, you know, and so the whole booklet will kind of be anchored by that peekaboo pocket in a way. And then, like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, right, I'm going to use the 8x8 side loading pages, pocket pages, to kind of serve as, this one's a little stuck, to serve as, well, page protectors for the additional pages. So that's going to be an easy piece where I'm just going to use my trimmer. I'm going to line up, you know, the edge here of the page. You can see this little lip here. Before the jeeping comes in, I'm just going to get that lined up. And then just trim it off. And so now I have I've got page protectors for the other pages in the booklet. Remember to just going to size this real quick. If I have to trim a little bit more, then I do that. But probably not once I have photos in there. And so then I'll just do the same for the other pages. So there we go. I'm still figuring out photos, otherwise I continue and keep putting the rest of it together. But, you know, with this extra sheet, you know, I might use some of this for the mats, because it coordinates. I might put pictures here or whatnot. There's lots of options to go with. So I am really excited to keep moving on with my 2025 with this particular layout. So hope you enjoyed. Hope you you know, were able to get some tips. As always, if you need anything, feel free to reach out to myself or to your favorite advisor. And as always, stay safe, be well, and happy scrapping. I'll catch you next time.